when she hits record.
Good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Shall we just hop right in?
Yeah,
NFL.
clones in the draft, Factual Five, 3 for 3.
Yes. Yep. Do you want to do 3 for 3 and not 3 for 3 first, or Factual 5 first?
Up to you.
We can just do. How
Whatever
about we
you're-
cap
whatever-
it off? How about we cap it off with the Factual 5?
Okay, that
Last
sounds
one.
good to me.
Okay.
Yep, let's dive right into it.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome into this week's edition of The Rundown with Caleb and Casey here on a Thursday afternoon. Happy to be back. Talking ball, talking all things ball. This is one of our last times of the year, Casey, that we will be here in the Student Innovation Center at Iowa State, as the summer is quickly approaching, which means we will no longer have access to this place. We'll be doing it back probably virtually for most of our
Yeah.
episodes, as we will be in 2 different places. But it's been a great year of podcasting here in this studio.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we'll definitely be coming back next year. It's been an absolute blast to be in here, learning along the way. Solid so far, and, more fun to come this summer and more to learn from next year.
Well, yep, pod today should be relatively short. Last week was kind of action-packed. This week, not so much. Recapping the NFL draft, we'll do our 3 for 3 and not 3 for 3 as always. And then, like we alluded to last week, we've got a Factual 5 to hit on today, which is always exciting. First one in a while. It's been a long time. Once we got into the full swing of things with just football and basketball season, didn't have the time for it. Doing that today, though. Let's start here with the NFL draft, Casey. I think last week I kind of mentioned that I thought, aside from like the Iowa State guys who were supposed to go, to me it was a relatively uninteresting draft. Just it didn't seem like there were that many storylines in comparison to previous years. Well, then the whole Shedeur Sanders thing happened, and it quickly became one of the more interesting and one of the more just crazy drafts that I can remember, especially because of the reaction that ensued. Let's start here with the Iowa State guys, and then I want to touch on that a little bit. But, first and foremost, Jayden, Higgins, and Jaylen Noel are reunited,
Yeah.
playing on the same team, the Houston Texans, the Houston Cyclones, as they also have Xavier Hutchinson. How cool is that?
I mean, that'll be an absolute blast to tune and watch them. Unfortunately, they're going to have to play my Jaguars
Yeah.
twice a year. That's the worst
Right.
part, man. But, so happy for them. And maybe there's a pipeline forming between Iowa State and Houston. So, we'll see how things go. Higgins goes round 2, pick 2. I mean, geez, he's almost first round
Right.
caliber. He was the first receiver of the second round.
I think so.
So,
Yeah.
first receiver day 2. I mean, really high praise for him. Noel slides a little bit down to the middle around 3. Not bad at all, kind of where we had talked about them going before. But 2 very high-value players and 2 guys that Houston's definitely looking to get a lot of production out of. The issue is that is a very deep wide receiver room.
Yes, it is. And last year it was the same way. Now, they lost. They traded away Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell is basically he's officially out for the year. I'm pretty sure.
He is. I did.
Yeah, he's
certainty.
got something with his knee where I think he's having full on knee surgery, and it's going to take a while to recover. But to your point, so they got Christian Kirk in the offseason, got him from the Jaguars. They've got Nico Collins.
Yeah.
They've got, obviously, they already have Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie,
Mechie.
and then you factor in those. Maybe, am I missing a name as well?
Higgins, Noel. They signed
Yeah.
Braxton Berrios. So, but that's
They've got a lot of receivers. Yeah, they have a lot of them. And then once Tank Dell comes back, I mean, that guy, we saw how good he was when he was healthy. So it'll be, you have to bide for your time. I would guess Higgins probably plays a more immediate role than Noel does, and how immediate actually is that, we'll see. But I think it's so cool those 2 guys are both going there to Houston. They love each other too. It's not just the fact that they're 2 teammates. Those guys are like brothers. They were roommates here at Iowa State. They're like best friends. It was super cool seeing their reactions when they found out they'd be playing together moving forward for, probably a long time. Maybe not. We'll see. But super cool.
Yeah, it really comes down to how Texans want to utilize this offense because Nico Collins will be the X if Tank Dell is out. And the question will become, is Christian Kirk going to be the Z and then Jayden Higgins steps in and plays the
Mm-hmm.
Y? Or is Christian Kirk going to play the Y and Jaylen Noel slots in at the slot over there at the Z? That more undersized, kind of quick. It really will depend, and I think that'll come down to preseason stuff, the summer workouts, and all that. That we'll definitely keep an eye on. Who's making more of a impact so far? Where are they kind of lining guys up? What are they looking to do with them?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Will be a fun storyline to follow. I'm definitely going to be watching the Texans, trying to every single week just with those three guys all on the roster. A couple other Cyclones get drafted. Darian Porter is the second one off the board in round two. Goes to the Raiders. I don't know. I feel like he probably would have fit in anywhere. He's just
Yeah.
a super athletic guy, obviously really, really fast. So anybody can use an asset like that. And then Jalen Travis to the Colts. It seems like they're really excited about him. He went in the third round, I think, or was he
Fourth.
round four? Okay, fourth round for him because Noel was the third.
Yeah.
Travis was the final Iowa State guy to go. I think that's a good fit there in Indianapolis as well. I don't know how immediately he plays, but he's certainly got the frame of an NFL offensive tackle. Super long, lengthy, good mobility for a guy of that size. So two good fits there. A couple of undrafted free agents for Iowa State, guys that signed to teams as well. I saw our boy Steve-O Klotz signed a deal with the Chargers. That's sweet. That is so cool. Good for Steve-O. Maybe the next Kyle Juszczyk.
Who knows, man?
Yeah. But overall, this was one of maybe the best draft Iowa State has ever had.
It's gotta be, right?
I think it probably is. Four guys. A couple years ago, they did have Will McDonald go in the first round, but there were only three guys in that draft, and the two other guys went pretty late. I think the Purdy year, it was four of them. Yeah, it was four that year, but I don't know. NEU Wazariki never really panned out. That draft was good, but this one, it's like, man, all four of these guys have the opportunity to probably have pretty big impacts in their rookie seasons. We'll see.
Yeah, Travis actually has a better chance than previously thought. Braden Smith, who was a big free agency signing recently for the Colts, they went after him, brought him in. Is having a lot of personal issues, it sounds like. He's the starting right tackle.
Not to be confused with Braden Smith at Purdue.
Of course, two very different players. Travis is currently listed as their secondary right tackle on the depth chart. And, in the NFL, 17 games, you're going to have 7, 8 offensive linemen play quality snaps. So I wouldn't be surprised if Travis's snap count is actually up there in second or third place among this year's drafted Cyclones.
All right, well, yeah, fantastic all around for Iowa State. Let's touch on this quick before we move on to 3 for 3 and Factual Five. The Shedeur Sanders thing.
The Dylan Gabriel situation, you mean?
Yes.
The Browns went out and got their guy in the third round that they're confident in playing.
And then went and got his backup.
And then got his backup to mentor him on how to dress nicer.
And then Deshaun Watson will also be mentoring him as well.
Mm-hmm. And
as will Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, so 5 QBs going in, maybe 4 if Watson doesn't play. So are they each going to get like 1 quarter of football, week 1 and 2, and then we'll go from there, Maybe Flacco gets 2 quarters of football. Dylan Gabriel gets a quarter and a half. Kenny Pickett gets half a quarter. And Shedeur Sanders makes music or something. I don't know. Good luck in the CFL. But, yeah, continue.
Get ready to learn Canadian, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Arena Football League.
Prayers up to that quarterback coach who's going to juggle those 5 guys. That's just that dynamic. I can't see that turning anywhere good.
No. But, we know why Sheduer dropped. It isn't crazy. Yeah. He wasn't a first-round talent, according to many GMs, many people inside, scouts, all these media personalities. Mel Kiper, get fired soon, please, had him as, the best QB in the draft, which a lot of people didn't think, especially in front offices and stuff like that. And then it comes down to character. And I saw a lot of people saying, well, like, Johnny Manziel had character issues and stuff like that. Yeah, he did. and he almost wasn't taken first overall. But Johnny Manziel's nickname is literally Johnny Football because he was the greatest college football quarterback possibly of all time.
Yeah.
And he almost didn't get taken first overall because of his character issues. And the Browns tried to fix things. And then they learned from, they learned from that situation to not take a QB with character issues in the first round, right? And Shedeur Sanders, very talented player. I didn't think he was a round 1 talent. I thought he would go in round 1 because of who he is.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was. I thought round 2, maybe round 3, but all the way to round 6, or was it round 5 or round 6?
I want to say he got taken when it was the fifth round. Yeah.
Yeah. But it shows that, like, man, he did not interview well, and people do not think, very highly of they're investing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in you, and they've got to be around you every day. You have to be likable and appreciated. And apparently he didn't interview well enough for them to be like, yeah, we're going to invest this money and we want to work and be around this guy every day for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And the other problem too, and is the whole Deion Sanders factor and just Sheduer as well. A lot of organizations don't want just that extra drama, extra noise. If they don't need it, why would you add it, right? That's just unwanted. Teams in the NFL especially try and be out of the media as much as they possibly can, right? Because they just don't want drama. And there's a lot of drama in the NFL. They don't want that. And taking Shedeur Sanders means you're just automatically going to get that because you're going to get him and everything that goes on with his personality and then the Deion factor as well. Where, especially if you're a head coach who's on the hot seat already, you're going to have Deion rile up your fans against you. Like, that's going to be going on too. So it's like, it's already risky. And to your point, he's just not a first-round talent. Is he second, third, fourth? Maybe. I think he's a good I think he's athletic.
Yeah.
But he still has a lot of development. There's a lot of development that needs to happen before he's a legit quarterback. So, yeah, to me, the reaction was just way overdone.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if he doesn't go in the first round, he's not going to go in the second round. There's only been like one QB to go in the second round the last
That's
decade,
true.
and it was Will Levis, and look at him,
Yeah, do you want to turn out like that?
No. I mean, for what it's worth, he played and he got money. But, and then you think about it, round 3, would they invest a round 3 pick on a guy that they're not going to try and bring up right away, and he didn't interview incredibly well, when there's better options? I mean, they went out and got Dillon Gabriel, who, in my opinion, is going to be the next best backup. Kind of like a Jacoby Brissett to me. Like, he's not going to start very early on in his career. He may not even start until like the middle of his career because of an injury, and a couple guys go down, and then all of a sudden, you put Dillon Gabriel in. I love Dillon Gabriel. He's incredibly talented. He's southpaw, a little bit on the shorter side, can make almost every play because he's been in college for 6 years. I think the world of him, but, he's not going to be a QB that I hand the keys of my franchise over to, or I'm not wasting a first or second round pick on him. I think third was the right area for him to go. Maybe Flacco mentors him and he kind of takes over as like a rotational starter, a Geno Smith, but instead of being an early draft pick and then things didn't pan out and then he's got to work his way back in, he just starts working his way back in from early on. That could be the scenario.
Yeah, that will be the storyline this offseason in the NFL. That nothing else, whatever else happens, unless somebody crazy decides to retire randomly, that is going to be the story going into this NFL season, which to me is going to get really annoying. I'm sure same with you too. Like, I just don't have the stomach for that. But it's what gets the clicks. It's what gets the clicks. So, it is what it is. Everybody's going to be all over it. Shall we? Okay, let's hit our should we go not 3 for 3 first and then 3 for 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
My not 3 for 3, Jordan Travis, unfortunately announcing he will be medically retiring from football. Never got a chance to play in the NFL after the freak injury against North Alabama 2 years ago. I mean, that's a guy that scored scored a touchdown on his first ever play in a Florida State jersey. Incredibly athletic. I mean, it's a guy I sat on my bench in Dynasty Fantasy because I was hoping that he could get back to where he was with the Jets. And it's just a really sad story for an incredibly great person.
Yeah, it is. Casey, so to the audience here, Casey sent me a very somber text last night when he found out about it. And I should have, in hindsight, I should have checked in to make sure you woke up this morning. I mean, now you're here now, so I
Yeah.
know you're okay. But man, yeah, devastating. That was your, he was kind of your, wild card. Let me just make a value investment here on somebody. It was Jordan Travis for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with them drafting Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
Like he was a fantastic player in college.
Yeah.
Freak injury derailed everything. I mean, threw off the whole college football playoff as a whole.
Yeah, it did.
If you really think about it.
It did.
And just a really good person. So much upside, so much what if for me.
My not 3 for 3. You already alluded to it, but Mel Kiper's absolute meltdown on ESPN several times. I mean, it was like he didn't just do it once; it was multiple times over the course of the weekend. Just admit you were wrong, man. Admit it. It's
okay
so
to be
dumb.
wrong in the draft. You
Yeah.
don't know everything.
No. The NFL draft is pure entertainment, and NFL mock drafts and draft analysts, those guys are even now it does influence the draft picks a little bit. I think that definitely has a factor in what guys are doing in their draft room. Like they definitely read, the mock drafts, they read the headlines, things like that. That plays a factor, but it's mainly purely entertainment. And yeah, Mel Kiper, I don't know. He was totally just backtracking and not even backtracking, just trying to stand firm in something that he got horribly wrong with the Shedeur Sanders deal. So that was annoying.
Yeah, without a doubt, especially ranting over other people's draft picks and other people getting picked and not really going in on them instead was the worst part. I watched the game day guys. I couldn't. After about pick 2 or pick 3, I was like, I'm going to go watch the game day guys.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get NFL insight from them, but I'm not going to hear about Shedeur Sanders every pick.
Right.
My number 3, I'm going to go with Kansas baseball, 36-10 overall. 1-0 against Missouri, 3-0 against Kansas State, one more game against Mizzou this week, and a bad Mizzou team. It is, so really good from the gentlemen. Their baseball park is Hogland Park, so they've been saying to crank the hog.
Crank the hog.
And load it up with fans, and it's been a really good season for them so far.
Yeah, I've been seeing the stuff on Twitter just briefly. It seems like they're having a really good year. What's that rivalry called with Missouri again? Just in general?
Border War?
Is it the Border War?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of history behind that, obviously. That's interesting. You mentioned that because my number 3 is on the softball side, and I'm actually giving it to Iowa State.
Their best season ever.
Yeah. At least in Big 12 play. They had a bad non-con, but this is the most wins they've ever had in Big 12 play by a good margin now. They broke that record a few weeks ago. Phenomenal year they're having. Credit to we on this, if you're the audience, you get it. On this pod, we stick when it comes to Iowa State, we stick mostly to just football, men's basketball. Maybe like every once in a while some women's basketball, but nothing more than that, right? We'll throw out the wrestling, the wrestling take every once in a blue moon. So softball is not, we're not covering that here, but they're having a fantastic season. 28-21 right now. They did just lose to Iowa last night, but they beat Iowa earlier in the year, so they played them twice, which I think the one earlier is the one that counted towards the Cyhawk series, so that's all that matters. Exactly. Go Clones, baby.
Yeah, can't go without shouting them out, especially as Cyclone students ourselves and sports fanatics. My number 2, got to tip the hat to my favorite NHL and NBA teams going 4-1 in the first round, Timberwolves and Carolina Hurricanes. Getting it done, moving on to the second round. Timberwolves getting it done last night. Is this the end of LeBron?
Dude, I've got, I don't cheer. I'm not a Timberwolves fan. I got nothing against them, but seeing the Lakers lose in that fashion with LeBron and Luka on the same team, to me I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, go Lakers, baby. Is this the end of LeBron? It kind of seems like it could be. I don't think he's getting another ring. I mean, if you can't do it with that team.
He's been kicked out of the last first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Jordan ends his career on a three-peat. Is James going to end it on 3 straight first-round exits? Might need to go back and relook at who's better.
Yeah, take a peek at the legacies there. My number 2 is our guy, John Rothstein, finally goes to sleep today.
Yeah.
He, for the first time since November 1st, he is going to sleep. He's just been awake for months.
He
But
finally sleep in
as he
May.
says, we sleep in May, and so he's going to sleep.
Yeah.
Congrats to him.
My number one dates all the way back to one of the biggest boxing beefs of the 1990s, Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn. Now they went. Eubank wins the first one in what was one of the greatest rivalry matches, and in the second round, it was a controversial draw. The third round never happened, and now in 2025, their sons, Connor Benn, who was undefeated, the pure aggression style, and Connor Eubank Jr., the more swagger, classy style, both very like their fathers, faced off. Eubank Sr. had not talked to his son in over 3 years since his younger son's passing, and called the fight a clown show due to the insane weight cut and Ben failing a drug test just 3 years ago in 2020 when they were previously scheduled to fight. Just nights before, Eubank Sr. gets in touch with his son and ends up walking by him side by side down to the rink, where Eubank Jr. would end up pulling off the upset in a unanimous 116 to 112 decision after 12 rounds.
Incredible.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. This is why the 3 for 3 is so good, because we get the kind of the outside stuff, mix it in. My number one, we also already talked about it earlier. It's just this quarterback room that the Browns have.
Yeah.
Nothing more needs to be said. It's just, you've got about everything involved. Joe Flacco is somehow still around.
And he's
What is
probably
this
going to
guy doing?
start.
Yeah, you probably will. I mean, you're not going to start Kenny Pickett.
No.
That guy has been one of the biggest
You're not throwing
quarterback
Shedeur
busts of all
Sanders
time.
to the Wolves this
No.
early.
No. Yeah, it's probably Joe. Joe off the couch.
Good old Flack.
Alrighty, well, let's move into the Factual Five for the week. This one, I think we kind of were hoping to maybe do it a little bit sooner than this, but it just didn't really work out. This Factual Five is, in our opinion, the 5 best college basketball national champions, and it is of our lifetime.
Of our
right?
lifetime,
Yeah,
yes.
of our lifetime. This, reason being is, it kind of coincides with March Madness ending a little bit ago. I mean, we were kind of shooting on doing it a little bit earlier, closer to when the Final Four happened, but that's okay. So, top 5, in our opinion, best college basketball national championship teams of our lifetime. Casey, are you ready, my friend?
I am.
So ready to be back.
Throw out my honorable mention first, the 08-09 UNC team with Tyler Hansbrough. That team was absolutely fantastic. Only 2 All-Americans for me. They did have 5 guys averaging double figures, Hansbrough with 20 points per game. I think that team was fantastic. Just did not quite get to where some of these other teams were. I'm actually going to start out at number 5 with the most recent one on my board, 23-24 UConn. Guys like Newton, Spencer, Caravan, Klingon, Castle, Hassan Diarra, Solomon Ball coming off the bench. They went 8, 9 deep sometimes. Couple All-Americans, Tristan Newton leading the way, 6 guys averaging in double figures, and a lot of different guys that could get it done any night of the week.
All right. Good start. I am going with my number 5 being your Kansas Jayhawks 2022 team. Now, that's a team that it kind of, they were obviously really good throughout the whole season, but it took probably until the tournament for them to really reach their peak, reach their stride. And by the time they did, they just kind of handled everybody. It was just a workmanlike effort. I really, for the first time, I wasn't really paying that much attention to just college basketball in general during the COVID year. So, being able to watch that the following year and, see a Big 12 team go and win it back-to-back years, right,
Yeah.
following that Baylor team. I just thought it was a steady team. Ochai Agbaji, Christian Brown, and then you factor in that David McCormick guy as well. I mean, that trio of dudes, really good. Jalen Wilson, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Remy Martin off the bench.
yeah. Didn't they also have DeJuan Harris on that team?
They did. He started at point guard, of course.
Wow.
What Kansas team
And
hasn't had
Also started
DeJuan?
at point guard 8 years later.
Yeah. And, I mean, you think of it probably just before Perry Ellis had graduated, and
Yeah,
he'd been there
yeah,
8 years.
Probably.
So this is going to be the first roster in, 2 decades without a Perry Ellis or DeJuan Harris?
It's been a long, probably since that 2008 national championship team.
Probably. My number 4 is going to be the 2011-2012 Kentucky team. Just dominant, Anthony Davis, Doran Lamb, Terrence Jones, MKG, Sam Malone played like 6 games. He sucked, but he was kind of there. Marcus Teague as well. AP Player of the Year, Anthony Davis, and what may go down as one of the best defensive seasons in college basketball ever. Another All-American and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. A very solid team. Only 2 losses. Were dominant all throughout the tournament. Not the best Kentucky team, but unfortunately all the teams better couldn't get it done in March.
Good pick. I'm going to go with my number 4. It is the 2018 Villanova team. So not the Chris Jenkins National Championship team.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks about that one. The Jim Nance gives it to Jenkins for the championship, like that whole thing. But this still had a lot of the same, a good amount of the same guys. Didn't have Chris Jenkins anymore, but had Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, who was playing last night for the T-Wolves.
It was.
Yeah. Just a loaded roster. If you take a peek at their tourney run, they just kind of steamrolled everybody. Nothing was really close. I think their closest game, they played Kansas in the Final Four, maybe.
Yeah.
Beat them by 6.
Game.
And then they ran Michigan in the national championship, beat them by 17.
They did.
So, yeah, another team that just kind of dominated, especially by the time they got to the tournament.
My number 3 straight blue bloods. I mean, 4 straight if you count my honorable mention. It is the 14-15 Duke team. Jahlil Okafor, Quinn Cook, Justice Winslow, Tyus Jones, Emil Jefferson, Matt Jones, Grayson Allen, and Marshall Plumlee, of course. 2 All-Americans, 4 guys in double figures, a really solid bench, and just one of the best Duke teams. I looked back at some of the other ones. The Shire team was just not that good. Shire kind of led the way, but that 2014-15 Duke team, very talented, very special. Jahlil Okafor leading the way. Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, as much as you hate him, you kind of got to give him his flowers sometimes, and unfortunately I got to give him the nod here.
Good pick. My number 3 is going to be the 2021 Baylor team. Won the national championship. Obviously, that was that was the COVID year. But moving into that spring, COVID kind of going away by that point. That team was just loaded, so loaded. And that team actually had LJ Cryer as well,
It did.
believe it or not.
Yep.
Yeah, that guy, another guy who's just been around for forever. But they just kind of took care of business against everybody. They actually, I don't even think they won the Big 12 tournament that year.
I don't think they did.
They lost to, it says here they lost to Oklahoma State, which is very interesting. But then steamrolled everybody in the tournament. Flo Thamba, Adam Flagler, Jonathan Chamois, Chucha, however you pronounce his name. They had Jared Butler as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was probably their best player.
Yeah.
Another just great Big 12 team. It's and I really wanted Houston to win this year just to add on to that, but it is what it is.
I couldn't put that team on there. I just had an asterisk. It was too close
That's
to
true.
the COVID. They are one of the most dominant teams in college basketball, but to me, there's too much of an asterisk next to it. My number 2 is the 2018-19 Virginia team. I held them very high. 2 AP All-Americans, Kyle Guy, DeAndre Hunter, not to mention Ty Jerome, Mamadi Diakite, Kihei Clark, Jay Huff was on that team, Jack Salt, just a really solid team all around. I mean, it was that Kihei's freshman year, and he was playing 38 games a year, and they beat what was my national champion and what I thought was one of my favorite players I ever watched all time was Texas Tech, and I'm blanking on his name.
Jarrett Culver?
Jarrett Culver.
Yeah.
When the Timberwolves took him, I was ecstatic, and things just didn't pan out.
Yeah, that Texas Tech team was a lot of fun, too. My number 2 is the UConn team from 2023-24. And they really, I don't know, the comp they had in the tournament really wasn't that great. Because they beat Illinois in the Elite Eight, who Iowa State lost to in the Sweet 16, and then played. I forget who they played in the Final Four, but then they played Purdue in the national championship. I didn't feel like that Purdue team. I mean, obviously they had Zach Edey, but I didn't. And Donovan Clingan guarded Zach Edey in that game, so it's like he was kind of shut down. And they obviously rolled Purdue in the national championship, but I still think that team was just, as much as I hate to give flowers to Dan Hurley, I have to in this situation. They were so good, just piled it on everybody they played. The year before was obviously the year they won as a 4 seed. Very dominant that year too, but they didn't play anybody in the tournament, and then they also didn't have as good of a regular season. This, the UConn 23-24 team was dominant.
Yeah, I am actually, my number one is one you had down your board a little bit, the 17-18 Villanova team. Brunson, AP Player of the Year. Mikal Bridges, an All-American. DiVincenzo just off that list. Eric Pascal, Phil Booth, a young Connor Gillespie, and Demir Cosby Roundtree also on that team. They were just fantastic, played so well together. They really took it to Kansas in that national semifinal and Michigan in the national championship, which really kind of showed me how talented this team was. Maybe it's a little bit of bias towards it. I think that Villanova team was the best all time.
All right, and then my number one is also a team you had earlier, 2012 Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of these can easily just be interchangeable. Anthony Davis and that whole squad was unreal. Only national championship that John Calipari won, even with the amount of talent that he amassed at Kentucky. Very dominant, though. Yeah, not too much else to say about it.
I mean, there's just pure dominance.
Two losses. Now, they did actually have a challenge against Iowa State in the round of 32 that year. Look up, if you haven't seen it, look up Royce White highlights versus Anthony Davis in that game. He actually did hold his own, but the rest of that Kentucky team just kind of had their way with Iowa State. All right, anything else, Casey, before we head out here?
That is all.
Sweet. All right, thank you all for tuning in to this edition of The Rundown with Caleb and Casey. Next week, maybe some Cyclone football topics now that spring football's over. Get a little bit of an appetizer heading into the summer. But that is all for today. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Surprised no one came in here.
I know.
I kept looking over, waiting for it.
Yeah, maybe they didn't even have it reserved. It was just, but I know this 3:30 time slot was blocked off. Sometimes they don't even have it for anybody though. They just don't have people in here. I don't know what the deal is. I have class in 3 minutes though, but it's okay.